Your comfort zone starts where the questions you ask start making the experts uncomfortable. But then you aren't even here for anything comfortable. Not for a cushy job, not for a 9 to 5, not for a fancy designation. You're not made to settle for anything less than what ignites your spirit. You're not here to write code. You are here to rewrite the future. You're not made to design games. You're here to change the game. You're not here to mark your attendance. You're here to leave your mark on the world. You're not here to be created for jobs, but to have jobs be created for you. You're not here for the purpose of making a living. You are here to make living full of purpose. You're not here to upgrade your skills. You are here to upgrade the life of billions. You're not here for the rat race. You are made for the human race. You are not made for anything small. In fact, you are not made for anything less than creating a dent in the universe. Hero Wired. Be made for big things.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sangam 2021 panel on Agri-Tech. Our topic today is Seeds of Change. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this event. My name is Malti Raghunath. I am an alumna of IIT Madras, did my MSc Chemistry in the batch of 99. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, who is a fellow alum and who is way too cool. Yes, Karthik brings us so much coolness in this panel. Thank you, Karthik, for joining us. Karthik has nearly 3 decades of industry experience, which spans between engineering, automotive, management consulting. In the past, he has been associated with many firms like Ashok Leyland, McKinsey, Tata Motors, etc. Karthik started his entrepreneurial journey with Waycool in 2015 with his partner and co-founder Sanjay Dasari. The company operates a full stack of broadline product range across multiple channels and categories like fresh produce, staples, dairies, spices, and condiments, and packaged products, serving a base of about 1 lakh customers. Waycool, through its agricultural extension program, Outgrow, works with a base of over 85,000 plus farmers to source the produce and equips the farmers with the next gen tech while promoting principles of regenerative agriculture. With its core expertise in the areas of transforming business processes across operations, sourcing and supply chain organization and leadership capability building, Karthik has driven Waycool Foods in becoming India's largest agri-commerce company today. He has built a strong culture of innovation, resulting in Waycool leading automation and running a highly efficient business model in the industry. Welcome, Karthik. Welcome to the panel and welcome all of you.
Thank you, Malti. I hope I'm audible and visible. It's a pleasure to be at this panel and always wonderful to get back to school and wonderful to meet all of you. Waycool started personally for me out of angst and for my co-founder out of passion. I have largely worked in organized industry, as you've called out, and it seemed to me we were emerging out of yet another recession after yet another successful turnaround, but it left me feeling empty inside. How many more times are we going to do this? It's like running on a treadmill. Sanjay, my co-founder, was the one who suggested that, hey, there are a lot of skills that you pick up in organized industry. What if you apply them on those that are less organized? Maybe we can create a lot of impact. And it was he that suggested food as a space, because food affects all of us. Food and agriculture, every one of us is a consumer and half of us are producers of food. And if we were able to create a meaningful inflection in that space, then, it would be substantial and satisfying. That was really the genesis of the company. We started off with not much idea on what we will do in this space, but we had a sense that it would hover around supply chains, because that's really what the skills are that organized industry teaches. By definition, supply chains in sectors such as automotive are both efficient and responsive because there's very little value to capture otherwise. So we invested about 6 months. We walked back through the food supply chain, starting from the consumption point all the way back to the production areas, which are typically farms. And we learned quite a few things. Firstly, we learned that we were a food surplus country across categories. While the ghost of PL 480 haunted us for a long time, the fact remains that we produce more food than what we need to consume even today. However, we learned 2 things that troubled us. The first is, we lost as much food as what Brazil consumes every year between the farm gate and the retail outlet. We actually lose very little food at the retail outlet or at our homes. That's very different from the West, where most of the losses happen there. But we lost a lot in between these 2. That bothered us. The second is the fact that a lot of our food surplus had come from intensive cultivation. What that means is we're borrowing from the future. We're in fact deflating the health of our soil and deflating the health of our water systems in the quest for being food surplus. In fact, one of my leadership team members, Sendil, keeps pointing out when we visit some farms, he says, hey, you know what? This is almost like hydroponics in the farm. There's nothing left in the soil. You're literally feeding the nutrients through drip systems. It was that bad in many places that we visited. Our view was that, in fact, this has also become obviously a subject of discussion in the government, and our Honorable Prime Minister is more than cognizant of this fact. The 2020 budget was the first budget that shifted the focus away, in fact, from agri production and yield improvement towards supply chain efficiency improvements. And the 22 budget is now focusing on doubling down on regenerative rather than intensive agriculture and the use of technology in this space to enable this rejuvenation of our agricultural systems. What struck us was that, while we could work on either of these problems, for us to get engagement and traction in the supply chain, we had to solve for the supply chain. In the agri space, we had to solve for the supply chain problem first. And that's really what we started working on. So Waycool was formed with the intent of using what's available today as technology to reimagine the food and agri supply chain. Any good supply chain faces what's known as an efficiency frontier. You are either responsive at the cost of efficiency or very efficient at the cost of responsiveness. And most companies choose to operate somewhere along the frontier, making trade-offs. Young startups work towards responsiveness. They make sure that they deliver what's asked, when it's asked, where it's asked, but often at the cost of inventory or wastage on the other side. Established companies in stable industries focus on efficiency, but sometimes you may have to wait longer for your car or your truck. What helps in pushing this entire frontier out is technology. If we apply better planning logic, better supply chain management logic, and put a layer of technology that enables this to happen at scale, then we are able to push the entire efficiency frontier up. That is, you're both efficient and responsive at the same time. Organized industries have done this well simply because of the huge pressures on them to deliver and to stay competitive. Our agri supply chains are very peculiar. If you look at our traditional supply chains, they are actually brilliantly responsive. We don't run out of food anymore. Yes, we get the food and the prices are volatile, but supply isn't as much of an issue. The individual operators in the agri supply chain are far more efficient than any corporate can hope to be because it's their survival. But when you stack them together, inefficiencies start showing up. The stack efficiency is quite poor. And that's the reason we lose more food than what Brazil consumes in a year. The reason for this is the length of our supply chains. We have between 5 and 11 steps from the farm gate to the consumption point, which is the retail outlet. And this is a necessity in the current model. The reason is our farms are small and fragmented. A 2.5 acre farm, which is the average size farm in India, will produce 600 kg of tomato or 1.1 quintals of pulses, 11 quintals of pulses. That's not enough to fill a truck. It's not an economic transport quantity. And so you have consolidators who consolidate this material, grade sort them, and make sure you get lot sizes that are enough to fill it. Equally, we buy our food from nearly 12 million grocery stores, and we buy small quantities frequently 8 times to 10 times a month. Compare that with the US, where they buy from all of 38,700 grocery stores and reducing, given the advent of Amazon and the others. So our stores are small, they stock very little, and they don't like to keep stock overnight of perishable goods. So you require disaggregation of that economic transport unit, which is a full truck. And the disaggregated quantities need to be delivered. And that's the reason you have many intermediaries in the supply chain. If you take grains and staples, then you have more steps. You have storage, processing, milling, repacking, etc. So the number of steps goes. Now this causes inefficiencies. Obviously, each intermediary has to make their margins. Second, there's repetitive transport and handling. Third, it's often not done the right way. Fresh produce and dairy, etc. are actually living products. We have to treat them like passengers in an ambulance and not goods in a truck, but we don't do it that way, and therefore we suffer quite a bit. The subtler driver of loss is really the fact that there is a bullwhip effect in the supply chain. Small shifts in demand causes large shifts in production behavior. Our demand does not really change, it's inelastic. There are intermediary steps where, for example, a mandi may suffer lower arrivals because of a local factor. That's interpreted as being a shift in the demand. And consequently, there is overreaction to it, and therefore you see volatility. Tomatoes sold at 60 rupees at the farm gate 3 months ago. You can bet that it will sell at 1 rupee a kg next 2 months later, because that's how much overplanting has happened. So if there is a single platform that conveys true market demand to every stakeholder in the supply chain and makes it more as direct as possible, then it's possible to mitigate some of these effects. And that's really what we've tried to do. Waycool runs a direct supply chain. We are a product agnostic, channel agnostic supply chain that procures from as close to the farm as possible and liquidates the product after due processing as close to the consumption point as possible. We buy about 1,000 tons every day of fresh produce, grains and staples, and dairy products. Collect them through our 16 collection centers, have them processed through our 22 processing units, and have them delivered to about 100,000 retail outlets through our 44 distribution centers that are located across southern India. And with this footprint, we're able to service 500 towns, villages, and cities in southern and western India. What powers this is a single integrated technology stack that captures demand and conveys the demand in the form of forecast and purchase orders all the way to our product producers, and traces back the actual supply, shows the difference between supply and demand real time, and enables us to take decisions on corrections to be done so that we are able to deliver what the customer asks. The demand is captured through self-service apps. The retailer can simply place an order on an app, or a Salesforce automation app, which our Salesforce goes and gets. This demand is captured and processed into forecast, because frankly, I'll get today's demand for tomorrow's supply, but I have to tell my farmer at least for 24 hours in advance, even if it's fresh produce. Is that forecast which is sent back to the farmer either through an app or through WhatsApp, and the order confirmation is sent to them after they confirm delivery. Equally, when a farmer brings their produce into our supply chain, it is instantly visible. It is GRN, and then it's visible as inventory in the supply chain. The movement of this inventory is also decided by automated logic. And at any point in time, therefore, we are aware that in a given distribution center, for example, our Chennai distribution center, we know what the demand is for the day, and we know what the actual supply is going to be for the day. The deltas, we can take corrective action very quickly. Consequent to this, we're able to deliver fill rates that are between 95 and 98%, and with an inventory of less than 1 day for perishable goods and less than 5 days for our grains and staples. So the trade-off between efficiency and responsiveness has been sort of neutralized using technology. The second thing that our supply chain does is automation. Our collection centers, processing centers, and distribution centers are heavily automated, and the robots and sorting systems talk to our technology platform, which means if a customer places an order, it's not a human printing out a pick list and asking another human to actually pick. It's the system that will guide the pick list, and mechanical equipment do the picking, packing to the extent possible. This makes sure our warehouse productivity is very high, because this is a low margin business. Productivity has to be very high. Errors have to be as low as possible, and system efficiencies has to be as high as possible. This makes the model non-linearly scalable. And we've just put the last pieces of that puzzle in the place after 6 years of effort. Now, these largely address the first part of the supply chain of the problem, which is to deliver an efficient and responsive supply chain. Obviously, the benefit here is that the losses that are avoided get passed down as benefits to the producers. We retain some of it, and some of it gets passed on to the consumer as well. We're now attacking the second issue. We've created an agri-extension platform called Outgrow, where we assist the farmers, those who have been working with us for many years now, in growing and planning better. So we help them measure soil health through the app itself. They can request for soil health tests. We suggest crop plans to them on the basis of their soil health, and package of practices on the basis of the crop plan. We also help them with assistance in disease detection and prevention through AI, weather information, and market price information. Our package of practices are aligned both with global GAP as well as with regenerative agricultural practices. To ensure that we are not showing theoretical information to the farmer and to build credibility, we've actually built a model farm near Bangalore. This grows 100 different crops in just 4 acres. And it doesn't take a single input from anywhere outside except for the seed. And the team has taken a challenge saying we'll grow the seed also inside the farm. It's off-grid, solar powered, harvests its own water, and has actually increased its water table by 450 feet. It uses only natural fertilizer generated from the cattle that's on the farm. It uses pest control solutions that are not chemical in nature, and yet delivers a 10% better yield at a 29% lower cost. The intent for us was to actually show it, do it, and then show it, both digitally and physically to the farmers. And we're starting to get a lot of traction in that space. So we're now in the early days of attacking the second problem. For this, we're working with a large number of partners. Supriya and Gopal of Groundworks are helping us with farm automation. We've built an autonomous fertigation system along with them that ensures that fertigation happens as per the farm's requirement. Dr. Mudrika Khandelwal's team at IIT Hyderabad is working with us to help us extend shelf life of produce at post-harvest stage. Dr. Rachna Dave's team at the Research Park works on waterless hygiene technology in post-harvest processing of fresh produce. We work with more than 12 educational institutions and startups in this space, and we work with more than 40 entrepreneurs across our supply chain. To be honest, it hasn't been easy so far. While we're satisfied with the technical process, the progress we've made, the challenges have been in onboarding the farmers as a stakeholder and then attracting the right investors into the space. We realize that farmers will engage with us only when they see a monetary benefit. And that happens when we lift their produce. Liquidation and certainty of cash is what drives that. And that's the reason we chose the supply chain problem first. Now we're getting traction, and therefore we're rolling out the second part of the solution. Equally non-trivial is onboarding investors. In the early days, the space was seen with a non-profit lens. The fact is, every player that is there today in the supply chain is a hardcore entrepreneur. However, when we went into presentations in the early days, we were seeing like Quixote and Panza. It's changing now. And the reason it's changing is there is massive investment into last mile food delivery. And increasingly, investors are realizing that for that to happen, the supply chain robustness and a good operating system is necessary. And so the lens is shifting towards agri-commerce and agri-tech in general. We think this is healthy in terms of direction. We believe that we're at the beginning of a cycle of good funding in this space and good investments in this space. Of course, choice of partners is very critical. This is a longer term space. We shouldn't work with partners who believe in short cycles. So we need partners who are relatively more evergreen in their funding. Our goal now is to move from being an operator of the supply chain to an orchestrator of the supply chain. For example, many of our collection centers, processing centers, and distribution centers are no longer run by us. We have women entrepreneurs running our automated packing unit near Coimbatore. And we designed the unit for them, and they basically run this on a per kg basis for us. We are also experimenting with women entrepreneurs for last mile delivery. It's early days, the results are mixed, but we're optimistic. Our vision is to actually deliver this supply chain efficiency that we're targeting across every pin code in southern and western India. And the second, we want to, while pushing out the first frontier, which is the efficiency frontier, we also want to push out the second frontier, which is the trade-off between agricultural performance and health. If we can help our farmers generate more value per acre on the one side, while actually making their soil healthier in the process rather than weakening it, then we can look back with some satisfaction. We're 6 years old. The space in its new form is probably about 10 to 11 years old. We have a lot to learn and much growth ahead. We retain our curiosity. We think this is the beginning of something big. So I'd like to thank you all and welcome you to the beginning. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you so much. Very informative, full story there for all of us. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Rajiv Bhaskaran, an alumna again, who is going to also be the panel moderator.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. Karthik, thanks for that very very inspiring story of Way Cool. We will hold, the Q&A for just a minute while we introduce the panel of three very intrepid entrepreneurs in the food and ag tech space, have them introduce themselves and their company very briefly, and then start off our discussion with the panelists actually asking you their first question. We are just trying to make a little bit of a spin on a traditional panel. The three entrepreneurs that will be presenting their startup today are Dr. Kavita Sairam, who is a PhD in the field of microbial stress biology, and she will introduce her startup FibSol. After that, we will go to Ms. Sujata Ramani, who has been working since 2015, making a big change from the tech industry to the organic food industry and understanding small and marginal farms and how to bring that to us in the urban centers. And then after that, we'll have Ms. Surabhi Guha introduce her new startup, Tizi. So with that, let's start with Dr. Kavita Sairam.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Nishani is sharing the screen. Yeah. I'm from FibSol Life Technologies. Thank you for hosting me on the panel, and thank you, Mr. Karthik, for such a elaborate, at least it was elaborate for me to hear on the journey of Wakecool, and looking forward to hear more from you during the discussion and all my fellow entrepreneurs here. So yes, FibSol Life Technologies. So as the name implies, we started with working on fibers and solutions. The idea was, so there are two types of farming, the organic and the chemical farming. But whatever way of farming we do, there is a very important missing link which has been emphasized, and this is the soil bacteria, or the agriculturally important bacteria, say like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, mobilizing bacteria. And in the sense of nitrogen, it is nitrogen fixing bacteria. And we also have other plant growth regulator bacteria, which could be mobilizing zinc and making other minerals available to the plant in an assimilable form. And this is a natural ecosystem that has to be there all the while on the soil, and which has been broken in the course of our evolution. In terms of green revolution and in terms of others, it has been that the soil structure is not originally as it used to be. So this we definitely need to revive the soil by providing enough of these soil bacteria to the soil. But the challenge is today there are no sophisticated carrier materials to do this, because you have your conventional lignite peat talc, in which the available biofertilizers are today provided. And we also have latest technologies like liquid biofertilizers, wherein the bacteria are actually grown and then they are stabilized in buffers. So, and even with all that, there's a challenge of these bacteria staying alive in the carrier. And by the time they're getting to the soil, the bacteria dies. So the effect of the bacteria is not seen in the soil. And that's the reason farmers don't believe in biofertilizers, the segment called biofertilizers. And what does this biofertilizer do? Essentially, the biofertilizers have the capacity to convert the dimolecular nitrogen in the atmosphere into ammonia and make it into a form that the plants can take up. And in case of phosphorus and potassium, they actually mobilize, in the sense they make it soluble, the mineral phosphorus and potassium, and that is the form the plants can take up, because plants are living organisms. And the bacteria and the plant, especially the agriculturally important bacteria, they are always in a communication with each other. So you can grow them, no problem. You can grow them, you can supply them to the soil, all that is possible, technically, scientifically. But the challenge was identifying a suitable carrier for them to deliver them till it reaches the spot. So that is what was my interest when we started this company after my PhD. So I wanted to stabilize these bacteria, having from a stress biology background, microbes. I wanted to get my hands in that. So that is how we started inventing carriers, innovative carriers, in order to put the biologicals, especially the bacteria of the agricultural segment. That is where Fibzol is positioned today. So if you see, all our 3 patents are on bacterial encapsulation or bacterial stabilization technology. So this is a current product that is in the market available. And these are purely bacterial products, which are actually encapsulated in biodegradable polymers at a high payload. So it's a very simple process by which we just stabilize bacteria. It's something like your probiotic.
Thanks.
But
thanks, Kavita, for the brief introduction. So we will, hold our thoughts for questions, on the stage of the company. Sujata.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody across multiple time zones. Thank you to the Alumni Association for having me here. I co-founded Dana as part of an ongoing, not just entrepreneurial, but life journey where it kind of started off as volunteer work in the quest for finding organic products for my family, but eventually, took on more responsibility from volunteering to bootstrapping an agri-business. And we have been around since 2015. Our goal is to be this scaled up D2C organic food brand that is a global brand. Currently, we are available in 3 different geographies. Our focus has been on 2 fronts. One is to the consumer. We offer highly curated organic food products. To the producer, we work exclusively with small and marginal, mostly women farmers, with principles of fair trade, farmer autonomy, and sustainability. So we work with women-run organic farmer cooperatives, and a big shout out to those groups like Deccan Development Society, Timbuktu Collective, who have been doing the really hard work on sustaining farming communities over the past 25 years, where we are now able to step in and provide value on the market access part. And we have a small team based out of Hyderabad of about 12 to 15 employees. And our journey continues, and I will hold the rest of our story. It will unravel during the course of the Q&A. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Sujata. Surabhi, you want to give an introduction, please?
Sure. Thank you, Rajiv. And first of all, thank you so much, Alumni Association, for having me here. The story of my startup is pretty recent, going back to 2020. And the genesis is based out of my personal experience of just like millions of millennials and people shifting to new city away from their home. So there is certainly a knowledge gap which is coming up to sustainably manage our health and nutrition at home. So that was the motivation behind creating a digital platform and basically creating a business model, tapping onto the untapped home food market and in a way offering value to various stakeholders involved. So what exactly our platform does, it's a mobile application which helps the users cooking or having good food, whatever they wish, end to end, right from the recommendations based on their dietary preferences, planning and shopping grocery in a more organized way to reduce wastage, and also cooking easily, integrating multilingual step-by-step guides. So in this way, in this journey, in the business model, the way we are sourcing recipe is the core of it. So we are supporting hundreds of home chefs across India to publish their recipes. They're passionate about their work and they're earning well, and they're getting a digital platform to showcase their talent. So in a way, not just us, but we also support other women to become a food content entrepreneur by themselves. The second element which I want to highlight is that we are very aggressively creating a dialogue in the community that cooking is a gender neutral life skill. And that's why for the next gen or for the people of India, we want to present a digital platform to learn that skill. The next element which I want to highlight is that in this journey, we are enabling users to make conscious food decisions and be mindful about what they're consuming, being aware about the ingredients, its sources. So in a way, we are moving towards a sustainable and healthier future. And while we are making the users understand about how they're sourcing the ingredients, we are also supporting local and farm to table brands to connect with the end user in a more meaningful way. So that's all, and looking forward to the panel discussion.
Thanks, Surabhi. So we will kick off our discussions with, the panelists maybe asking what they would like to, ask Karthik, as he is, self-professed, a little bit ahead in the journey, and also has his hands end to end in the supply chain across, what all the startups here are working on. So we'll kick off with maybe Kavita. Dr. Kavita, your question for Karthik.
An inspirational and amazing journey. So I would like to understand what were the key challenges you had when you actually wanted to in your regulatory aspects, and whatever were your compliance challenges and how you overcome those.
I think, frankly speaking, the compliance challenges continue. The fact is that agriculture is a state subject, and consequently, the licensing regime are quite different in each of the states. It's not very clearly visible and available in one place, and therefore we are forced to actually make mistakes and learn, or we're forced to figure out and navigate the maze of regulations to actually discover what the agri end of the compliance is. We also have a peculiar problem that we have compliance requirements both on the agri side and the food side. We're sort of the bridge between the two. So you have FSSAI regulations, which is probably the most organized and centralized and completely online. Trade regulations, trade licenses, factory licenses. If you are packing vegetables in one pack, you're a factory. You need a license, you need a factory license. If you are greater than 650 square foot, you need a fire license, and you have a whole set of fire regulations to adhere. Shops and establishment has very subtle nuances. APMC registrations have very subtle nuances. The rule in Telangana is slightly different from the rule in Karnataka. And we learn these often through penalties. And we're now, in fact, one of our requests has been for the government to give us a single window portal, where maybe we can't apply for these compliances, but at least we can learn about these compliances.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful session.
Sujata?
Thank you. I know, Karthik, this is probably during your talk, one of the things that kind of connected and resonated with me is the conundrum around automation, because especially in the agribusiness, agricultural sector, how does one think about balancing automation versus employment? Because a lot of times automation, takes away from, I would use the word unskilled more in terms of unscalable manual labor, but at the same time, it is the manual labor that is a huge source of employment in the rural sector. And, as a social impact startup or a social impact business, what are the things that, you would suggest, or what are the things that you think about in trying to balance the two?
I think, Sujata, this is an interesting question. We've been asked this question a few times. The fact remains that a lot of activities along the food supply chain that happen elsewhere don't even happen in India. Processing and value addition of food is negligible in India. We're not saying that you go for highly processed food. There is an intermediary step for each product supply chain where it makes it convenient enough for the last mile user without making it a cooked product. For example, we have technology that produces chilled mash out of potato, and that can be used for you can buy mash and use it to actually make the patties at home, or make your batata vada if you're in Pune. Right? A lot of these activities need to start happening in the supply chain, and many of these activities need to be pushed back into the source itself. For example, when COVID struck, we learned this. We realized that a lot of grading, sorting, and pre-packing of vegetables can be done at the source rather than at the consumption point. And we're now empowering groups of entrepreneurs such as farmer producer cooperatives and women entrepreneurs to do this at the source itself. Today, we deliver 250,000 packs of vegetables to all the online players who do the 10-minute delivery. That journey actually starts at the source. About one third of that 250,000 packs a day are now packed at the source by FPCs and by women entrepreneurs. And by the way, when we get them to pack it, we don't get them to do a manual job. We say use what's the latest, but you move the value addition over there. So these kind of roles are aplenty. In fact, there are startups such as Our Food that are creating microprocessing units that can be set up at the source of production itself by a large number of entrepreneurs. And you deliver pre-manufactured and packed flour, pre-manufactured and packed batter, peeled garlic, sliced onions, and products like that. And that is the activity that needs to happen in the supply chain to make up for any erosion of employment in the delivery part. I keep wondering, 20 years ago, our predecessors like Mr. NRN created a large number of jobs which made kids of people from very poor backgrounds into software engineers. I worry that we are converting our engineers into delivery executives, the way it's going right now. So I think there are a lot of skilled and value-added jobs that can be created in the supply chain, and we're at the early stages of seeing that.
Thanks, Karthik, for that perspective. And, I think keeping people employed in kind of skilled and value added would actually ultimately take more of the wallet back to the source, like you mentioned, share of wallet back to the source. Survi, your turn.
So Karthik, while talking about Veiku's journey, you have mentioned that onboarding farmers was one of the challenges, and having the right partners on board is very crucial. So I want to ask that in the early stages, before we establish a brand, how do we build the trust to bring that community, or to like the stakeholders should trust your business to be a partner? So how do we build the trust to create the community?
I think Sujata touched upon this in her presentation as well. Look, we are city slickers. If we go out there, one of two things will happen. Either they will not trust us or they will rip us off. One of the two behaviors will happen on the ground. So we work with a large number of partners who have spent decades on the ground and use them as our facilitators and moderators. Start off with facilitation, end up being a moderator, even to engage with the farmer producer cooperative. For example, the National Agro Foundation has been a partner since inception. They create and mature FPCs on behalf of the government. They come and tell us which of the FPCs are ready to have an interaction with us. They also taught us to moderate our promises. There are a number of startups that overpromise and underdeliver to the farmers. This doesn't work. It poisons the well effectively. So they taught us to underpromise and overdeliver continually on whatever engagements are there. Similarly, they taught us not to be overeager and said, hey, start off with a very transactional engagement and get them to come to you. It's much easier that way and much more lasting. So we work with nearly 30 to 40 such partners who in turn facilitate and moderate our relationships with the farming communities, whether it's FPCs or FIGs.
Thanks, Karthik. I'll have Malati start off our question and answer sessions with the panelists themselves.
Sure. Thank you, Raji. One of the things that I have always, like Karthik mentioned this term, city slickers. We are so much in that bracket. And to each of the panelists, actually, I want to ask something. And how did you even get to building this company that is in the agri space? I mean, the idea here is to say that we all have had a more urban tech management sort of education, upbringing that was mainly urban, and some assumptions, of course, here. I do not know specifics of your background, but I just wanted to start off there and say, how did you even get to this idea of building this company and bringing it to its state right now?
So in my case, if you see technically, also I have a link to this field.
Correct.
Basically, I'm a biochemist by training, and more of biomolecules always fascinate me, whether it is an eukaryotic cell or prokaryotic cell. This may look technical, but this is the basis of life. And of course, anything inside the cell is always exciting to me. And that is how, but basically I was trained in medical biochemistry. And then I shifted, maybe the shift was towards agriculture. That was one major thing that happened. The reason was, one thing was always sure, that I wanted to do something on my own. So that was always there. Whatever I do, it's going to be something. Even my research was like that, to say, because I had convinced my guide to explore this way. We can do it this way. So, and then she accepted, and we had actually worked together. So that was very sure that but the only thing was why I shifted from medicine to agriculture. That is where it was after my PhD. And I think my guide was a major influencer in that, because when I decided I want to start, it was going to be some protocols or parameters or the lipid parameters or something in the serum, and more of a medical oriented assay development. But then she did bring to the notice that you have done a lot of work in microbial stress biology, and if you see, there is a major problem in agriculture today, wherein this type of, and if you say it was almost a decade when I completed my PhD. And so at that point of time, the liquid biofertilizers were the only innovation in the space. And for such a long time, nothing has come in this agricultural space. And why don't we look into it? That's how it got a shift. And then I got really interested, because the problem boiled down to, so we talk so much about organic. Till then, like what I remember Malti saying the other day, I've never thought about more of into the what happens after the food goes into the body, but what happens before the food goes into the body was something that we haven't thought about. So that is when it took a shift. And interestingly, I found that there is something that I could do with my knowledge, and there is some basic thing that if it could be sorted, can help farming as a whole, as a community, it could be beneficial. So that's how I got into this.
Very nice. Elementary, Dr. Kavita, when you were saying all the prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Sujata, would you like to just tell me where the shift happened from a techie to this space?
Thank you. So the first catalyst was that I literally had a physical shift. My family moved from the US to India because of a job change for my husband. And at that point of time, I was working. I decided to take a break to explore some of my interests that I didn't have the time to get around to at that point of time. And one definitely was around sustainability. And I started volunteering for a community supported agriculture program in Hyderabad at the time, mainly to be able to procure organic food for my family. Kind of living in the Pacific Northwest, many of these things I had, taken for granted because the urban farming ecosystem was already present. So when I started exploring that as a volunteer in Hyderabad, this was back in 2008, 2009. I had to do a lot of work to, to find these things. And I figured that working for a community would make things scalable for me personally as a family. But a lot of that was, from a very, like you're saying, right, urban, city slicker, with layers of bourgeoisie, right? That I am this, from a class point of view, very privileged consumer looking for organic food. But the real reality check came when I watched, and I would suggest anybody interested in the agribusiness area, I watched this documentary by P. Sainath called Nero's Guests. And that really gave me a very shocking introduction to the world of the agrarian crisis. And it kind of helped me connect the dots in terms of what is happening at the supplier level and how that connects to healthy ecosystems as well as from a consumer point of view. And that is where my focus kind of really shifted into how do I enable fair trade as well as more efficient systems to be able to connect small and marginal farmers to consumers, because I think that was the big part that was missing. I remember, Malti, in one of our introductory call, you had mentioned that a packet of food is a packet of food, and so a lot of it really opened up at that point of time, right? That you understand the human beings behind it, and their challenges and the societal structures that contribute to oftentimes a lot of the problems that we're seeing today. So the thing that that was a big learning for me is how do I bring in my skills as as an engineer or as a techie. And even though I shifted tracks, the techie in me has never left. But to a space that I'm entirely a newcomer to, and so it's been a wonderful learning journey, and it has really forced me to stay humble and learn, and to really be able to be the bridge between two completely different societal systems, that of the consumer and that of the producer.
Thank you. I'm going to steal that organic bourgeois Nazi from you sometime. Wherever I hear this, only organic food I eat, I encounter this much more here now in India. And you exactly nailed it down when you said that social status that gives us this kind of privilege. Thank you. From your point, Surabhi, where did this shift start?
So talking about my journey, it has been a personal experience that after graduating from college and when I came to the corporate life, I realized, and it intrigued me, that how in the fast-paced life we are losing touch with, just sitting peacefully and eating your food mindfully. And just understanding, okay, what exactly the ingredients are going into that. We're just forgetting about it. And probably we are deprioritizing the nutrition which is going into our body. So after analyzing all these thoughts, I decided that I should pursue in the way people should be able to connect to it. So we thought that through technology, we can pave the way to everyone's hand, because most of the time we are in mobile. If we want to consume healthcare, we go to our mobiles. If we want to listen to music, so mobile is a source, and the digital layer, I thought that that will help people to make conscious choices. So it's about the entire journey, right? From what you can consume, you can sustainably think about making that, okay, now if I have a tech support, I can even think of, buying grocery smartly. Otherwise, end moment you are busy in your life, or you are left with the option that, okay, I need to, just go for the fast food or whatever is the most convenient option available. So that level of convenience, we thought of bringing in the home food, going back to the roots. Especially for us Indians, we value home food very much. And scientifically also, it's a sustainable way for a healthier future, and we should from the early age start thinking of what we are consuming and putting in our body. So that's when I decided that why can't we pioneer this particular digital platform in India. And in this journey, although the thoughts were to add value to the users, but we realized that we can formulate a business model which can also support the creators, the home chefs, the women who want to make financial independence, and they can also contribute. And also for the brand side, we can also connect the farm to table brands or the organic brands and new emerging small brands who are working so hard to connect them to the end user. So that's how I came to this journey, Malti.
Very, very inspiring, all three of you, kind of taking a very big bet on this very big, part of our lives that, like you said, sometimes we don't connect to, kind of maybe giving slightly different focus on what stage of business you are in, if you can comment about that, and what emerging trends in the market are you watching that will impact your particular layer of the business, right? So maybe this is a kind of as a putting on an entrepreneur and a business hat. Can you talk a little bit about, for example, I think Karthik really indicated that overall there is a very good shift happening. It's slow, but it's happening, which is that, the downstream technologies like these delivery, businesses scaling massively is hopefully, making people think a little bit more about the overall downstream technologies as well. And just curious, how are you watching these market trends and how it affects your particular, segment of the business? Maybe we can start with, Surabhi, since you are on the one end of the, you're closer to the consumer, right? So what, you're talking about mindful eating, and there is a lot of 10-minute to half an hour delivery service, right? How are you thinking about gaining a foothold in that space?
So one thing, the trend which we have observed is that now more and more people are realizing their preferences, because that's one thing, that every end user is having their own preferences, the kind of diet they want to follow, they have their own choices. So that is one element which we are incorporating, that, okay, we are catering to every set of user. Someone is following veganism, a keto diet, different kinds of diet. People are becoming more and more aware about various diets. They are becoming more aware about new ingredients coming in. They're getting more exposure to new cuisines. So that's one element that we want to support. Whatever is your diet, we are happy to support you throughout your home food journey and consume whatever you want. Second trend which we are noticing is that now more than ever, we are more conscious about making sustainable food choices at home. So that is another reason that people simply, it's a good thing that the awareness is being generated to be mindful about your nutrition, what you're putting in your body. And the third thing is we are seeing the knowledge gap which is coming in terms of the experience. For the people going to the new city, they're clueless about day-to-day, everyday ingredients, or what I can cook, what I should buy, how much I should buy. So that knowledge gap. So these are some of the key trends which we are picking and incorporating in our model to support all the kinds of end users.
Thanks, Survey. Yeah, I think you're the modern version of the Sametupar that used to be in everybody's packing. I will date myself on everybody leaving their hometown and going into a new base. That used to be the thing. I really like your emphasis on gender neutral skill. Personally, as a parent of 2 boys, I'm very particular about making sure they not only learn this life skill but understand also the basics of it.
Very truly said.
Yeah. Sujata?
Kind of, picking up on some of the things that Surabhi said, the really healthy trend that we are seeing, even globally on health has been kind of redefined or evolved or matured, right? So before, it used to be health was very focused on healthy for me. And unfortunately, that led to a lot of, faddish market behaviors, right? There would be one day it was the low carb, another day it was the low fat, and then, there is a paleo or a keto, or, a lot of these are very reductive ways of looking at health. Whereas now, at least in the past 10 years globally, and definitely, in India as well, what we're seeing is health has become a little more holistic and expanded, where health is not just healthy for me, but healthy for others and healthy for the planet. So it is, it is a much larger definition. And so, especially for companies like Dana, which were kind of founded on those principles, bottoms up, and not just as a marketing bullet point. It's it is very encouraging to see a market that has a lot of synergy in terms of values and understands what is it that we are trying to do, where they are looking for fair trade, sustainability, regenerative agriculture, preservation of forest systems, right? Animal cruelty, a lot of those things on the one hand, as well as companies that are very employee focused, that empower employees coming from the communities with adequate, so all of that. So I think that this is something that I'm really looking forward to being in this journey in the midst of this, growing overlap of values. So
yeah, and I'm very excited for Dana's next phase. I know things that are coming up that are in the pipeline, for example, but the focus on minimum impact but still maximal value, and kind of like bringing more variety to our diets and bringing convenient and yet nutritious food, right? That's like really, I think, a fine balance there on how we treat our system. Kavita, your thoughts, and you already were asking Karthik. I think that's an indication that the regulatory landscape is one of your big challenges. Are there particular market trends that you're following, or regulatory trends you're following that are a challenge or gives you hope?
So first of all, like what Sujata and Surabhi were rightly mentioning, so healthy food is going to become, and it is a wide spread awareness there everywhere. People want to eat healthy, live healthy, so, and organic, going organic, vegan, and all type of form of diets that has come up. And basically there should be some understanding that unless until we are really knowing what is the agri inputs that we are using on the farm, which is going to translate into your food. And if you see, there are not many technologies, or even in the biological technologies are very less in this field, because the biotechnologists who are getting trained are moving more into the clinical and the healthcare sector. So that is slowly now there is a shift hear that people are also looking into agriculture and they are knowing the importance of agriculture. And I would definitely at this point of time like to mention that as a country, as a science and technology departments have started concentrating in much more. And I don't know whether the other spaces had this privilege, because I would like to register this on this platform, because biotechnology and agriculture technologies and biotechnology is having a privilege of taking a lot of grants only for developing products, especially in the startup space. I don't know whether that privilege is having for other tech startups, but biotechnology is one. We are blessed, and I would love to thank the government and the country for
that's a great, and also a call to action for the next generation, our alum who want to think about a more impactful career, understanding that there are a lot of opportunities here at the ground level, all the way from the science to the technology to, across the whole spectrum of supply chain. With that, maybe we can bring if Karthik is available back and open up for questions from the audience, and maybe Malti, you want to start off with some of the questions? Yeah, I don't know if you're there are a couple of questions on online on the chat, and I can start with those.
Somebody, Narayan, had raised a hand for a long time. I don't know if he has left. I was trying. Narayan Pai, K Narayan Pai, if he's still there, maybe we can take his question live. You're on mute. Could you unmute, please, Narayan Pai?
Rakesh, can you unmute him, please?
Yes, doing it. Sure.
There he is.
Hello. Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible, madam?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
So my name is K Narayan Pai. I'm alum, actually. I'm tech. Yes, actually, in the discussion, I observed that there was a point raised based on developing a community. So bringing all the people on the same platform. Actually, we are working on a software that's a group building software. You don't have to. It works on a smart login algorithm. You don't have to put any password or something like that. It self authenticates based on a computer vision algorithm that we are developing. So this actually can be used in that use cases. It is meant for that. Actually, we are developing it independently. We have not yet applied for incubation with any of the incubator, TBI or something, but we would like to actually to develop this further. So I can run this 1-minute video we have prepared.
Thanks, Narayan. I think it's not the right forum for that, but I will connect you offline with Surabhi, and maybe you can explore some opportunities there. There is another question from that relates to all of you and your experience, and if you have any takeaways for how IITs or other institutions of learning can develop a stronger agri expertise or expertise along this full supply chain, and also how, as a startup or as an entrepreneur, you can more effectively leverage resources available. I think, Dr. Kavita did her PhD in IIT, so she is already kind of connected doing it. But maybe Sujata and Surabhi, you can think about it. Doesn't have to happen today, but this is more like a call to action as administrators and as an alumni association. How can we influence the future of our institutes working on critical problems of interest?
Is that a question, Raji?
Yes, Sujata, if you have ideas on, if you have a magic wand that somebody else is going to get funded and solve some of your issues for the country.
Sujata, this is you just defining the problem, and then IIT put our brains together and get PhD students to work on it. If that was a wish list, what would you have it on?
No, I would think more on the education front itself. So something that is a little more immersive. Given that the IITs were set up with the goal of coming up with solutions for for our own country and society. And again, we are most of the students in IIT and post their graduation end up being city slickers, whether within the country or elsewhere. I think as part of the curriculum, if we do have immersive, subjects that really focus on building some, learning, an immersive learning on the rural sector itself, right? I mean, even today, 70% of India's economy is rural. And and again, to understand that, the social setup, the social structures are so different, that having those immersive subjects as part of the curriculum is what might even spur ideas, spur investments, spur understanding on a longer term.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, I think, for me personally, between my first and second year, we were one of the few majors that had to spend a summer in the shipyard. My major was naval architecture, and that surely changed the perspective on the learning subsequently after that. Having boots on the ground, literally boots on the ground, the shipyard for a good month. So that's a very good feedback. Surbi, as a more recent graduate, if you had a wish list of what you wish you had learned in your college years, is there any wish list?
Yes. So recently I have experienced few e-cells in our country, prominent in colleges. So many colleges, they are building a network of alumni and recent students, and they are also incubating and supporting students who are coming up with startup ideas. Because in the early stages, I think right mentorship at the right time is very important, and the entire community is super supportive. If you have gone through that experience, they're ready to help and just mentor. So I think mentorship and networking is one element. We whole as a community and ecosystem, if we can provide right guidance and nurture the students who are having good ideas, so I think they can pursue it further. So in my college, like I am from NIT Warangal, so this is in a very nascent stage, but I have seen in IIT Bombay, IIT Madras, IIT Kharagpur, there's a very strong, even in BITS, we have a very strong network of alumni supporting each other, and even they share across awareness that okay, the alumni they are working in this space, and these are the startups. If you want to exchange ideas, so that network and collaboration, I would like to add on to Sujata's point.
Yeah, thanks, Surbi. Kavita, do you want to start a new PhD, the new major?
She probably has 100 PhD ideas right now, which she wants to have, which go directly into agri-tech. So
it's fine, but I think Sujata and Surbi has spoken enough on that, and I feel again, I don't know how to say this, but I should also say that this looks like I'm blessed sort of feeling it gives me anyways. But the network is good, and the support system that you get here at the early stages has really helped us understand, and especially people like me, wouldn't have a background, and I come from a biological background and not from a commercial or a business, or not knowing much of what is this to start, and that I think the ecosystem has been really wonderful, and a little bit of more understanding from our end as an entrepreneur. At least for me, I feel that I should have had more understanding. I don't know, this is adult education because you keep learning as you walk through, but still certain things which we could have done it in a different way is what I depend more on myself rather than the ecosystem, because the support has been there, at least in this part of the country, it is there, and it's really helpful.
Thanks. So I have one or two questions in the chat box, which I think are nice. To just one general question, something that I also wonder, when will the organic produce become on par with the general produce? Okay. Anybody who wants to.
This is from a price perspective, Karthik or others. And, the question is, what does it take to have us, bring it to market at the same prices?
I think so. I'll defer to Sujata on this one because she understands that journey much better than I do. We see a spectrum of products coming into the market, which range from what people call as naturally grown to those grown using zero budget natural farming to those which are organic but not certified to organic certified. Each of these has a certain cycle. I think I guess there is an initial yield drop in the earlier days of organic conversions, so that causes prices to go up. But to be honest, there is a market factor that is driving pricing much more than the production loss factor, even in organic. We have seen migration to bio in steps without yield loss. In fact, we have seen, as described earlier, yield gain. And consequently, the early indications are that it's possible to converge prices. But specifically on organic, I defer to Sujata on that. I'm not the expert in that space.
I think organic as a placeholder for this, more alternate. I understand that, sometimes, and it's like you said, maybe the key thing is it's more of a demand or market, elasticity in the spending power, maybe that determines the price today than through, supply chain cost. Right.
It's a little bit of market demand skimming from the same bourgeois community that Sujata was referring to also. It's a fact.
Yes.
That term is going to stick. Okay, Karthik, how were you able to get detailed data in various parts of your chain from agri sector so that you could launch and progress in your startup? Are data available enough?
There is data available. The quantity of data isn't a problem. The quality of data remains a problem. The precision and accuracy of information is somewhat limited. However, there are multiple sources today. We work with a number of satellite data providers, which give us data on current state of crops across the geographies. We're trying to integrate them into our platform with APIs. We work with micro weather platforms such as Fussel and Groundworks, which give us data on very specific clusters. We actually, for price information, we have a team of benchmarkers. We have about 180 benchmarkers, and they have an app. They're completely unconnected to the company. They work like gig workers. They feed in data, and we have triangulation capability, etc. And that's how we get price and arrivals information today. There are platforms, government data such as AgMarkNet, which are available, but the precision leaves much to be desired in most of these. So it is diverse sources. There is an effort, however, to create something like an agri stack, which captures, for example, satellite information via ISRO, weather data from the Met, and several other such sources. I'm hoping that will move quickly.
Yeah, and maybe those are exciting opportunities for, current and future entrepreneurs because, like you said, when there are data sources but not clean and usable, then that obviously means that there is an opportunity there if you want to dig in.
Yes, definitely. There are substantial opportunities.
Anybody else want to comment on like what data they need for their business strategy and whether, how you approach that? Sujata, like, you're looking at farms that are like rain fed and things like that. What's your on the ground understanding data collection strategy?
In terms of sourcing, our data collection strategy is kind of, our data basically comes down to solving one essential problem of, how do we reach out to more farmers? We don't use much data that way. We go more from, trusted cooperative societies. So as they are increasing their own membership, we benefit from that. But most of our data is on the consumer side of things, which is where, from a logistics point of view, from a market growth point of view, those are places that we look at. And for that, our data, we reap a lot of data from our online platforms. And, this is for the entire sector itself, right? So we do find enough information, but nothing, excites me more than actually having deep dives with customers than just, broad data. While that is very useful, the nuances really come from deep dives. And so, I
So the
couldn't
actionable piece of it
answer
needs to be high
every
quality.
customer email, trying to understand, what exactly led to a particular point of dissatisfaction. So I think that,
I think we have run way out of our time slot, because it's been a very interesting conversation. I will invite Shamala, who is the president of IITMAA, to conclude the session.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Karthik, for joining us and giving this wonderful keynote. It was really a pleasure to listen to your journey. A special thanks to Kavita, Sujata, and Surbhi. Sujata, specifically you sitting up at 5:30 a.m. for doing us this program. I'm just so enamored by, I come from a very tech background, and just looking at so much happening behind the food that I eat and watching the passion with which you're pursuing agriculture is just amazing for me. Surbhi, I think it's wonderful to see your energy. You've been the youngest entrepreneur so far in our program, and we're so excited to have had you with us. Raji and Malti, thank you once again for being through and really coordinating this session. And for the wonderful audience who've joined us and heard us through. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to, please watch out for Sangam as we have more sessions coming up in the upcoming weeks. The next one is a quiz for the alumni, and we're going to follow it with a session on sustainability. So just hold on and watch out for more fun in Feb and March with more interesting sessions coming your way. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful